All right, so we're jumping right in. We're doing a follow-up to Alex from Love is Blind on season 8. In the community, you guys let me know that you wanted me to talk a little bit on here about story times with Ricky or Ricky's allegations receipts, right? So if you don't know, Alex from Love is Blind, who was dating Madison, if you've seen my previous episode, he's the guy that was so in tune with his emotions and his attachment style. A few of you in the comments have told me I shouldn't be sticking up for him because he's a horrible person. I get that. I wanted to come forth because you have requested that I speak on it, so I will. Now, in this episode, we're going to be paying close attention to what Storytime with Ricky has disclosed in her findings with the woman. Now, keep in mind, this all happened 10 years ago, and there are women who are now coming out saying this has happened. I am praying that these women and whoever else has been affected find some emotional healing because it's not easy. Now, these things have happened 10 years ago, but Ricky, and I apologize if I keep saying her name incorrectly because I should know this by now because I've been following her on TikTok, but Ricky has come forward with women who have said that Alex has hurt them in some sort of way. Now, I'm going to go through and play the videos, but I want you to keep in mind the repetitive patterns that you might find from the allegations these women are stating about Alex. We are then going to dive into what I would do as a clinical assessment. I want to emphasize, though, that this review that I'm doing is for entertainment purposes only. This is not intended to provide a diagnostic or for diagnostic use. I am simply just providing factual information on how I would diagnose personality disorders and how personality disorders are typically diagnosed. This is also just going to be used for discussing the allegations. And again, I want to emphasize that I'm not here to diagnose Alex, but just shedding light on what personality disorders are and what they look like when there are symptoms that present like Alex. So for this example, we can say we're using Alex as a pseudo case study. Okay, so let's jump in to the video.
Starting from the beginning, if you have no idea what's going on, Alex from Love is Blind season 8 was posted in the Are We Dating the Same Guy Minneapolis group. He was posted back in June, so this is before the season cast was announced. This is before he was on the season 7 reunion. It is before anybody knew who he was. When he was posted in this group, a lot of anonymous users came forward with some very serious allegations against Alex.
So if you guys don't know, Facebook is the GOAT for having community groups, right? And so I've seen these years ago, like, are we dating the same guy, or is this your man? Crazy stuff, right? I've since then not been on Facebook because I just don't feel the need to join these groups, but they are a source of resource for building community. It looks like in this particular state, there is a group that says, are we dating the same guy? And as you're reading here, it says, one of the people that Ricky has blacked out says, I used to party at his house in high school with my friends. He was 19, around 20. We were around 15, 17. So if we stop here, we understand that there's an age discrepancy here. I also want to give a warning to anyone who has experienced any kind of abuse. This video might not be for you if you don't know how to soothe or self-soothe or haven't developed the coping skills needed in order to not stay in a triggered place. Okay. So this young lady says, we hooked up, took advantage of he definitely took advantage of some of us due to our age. And I don't know him now at all, which is interesting, right? There's a message here below too that Ricky's probably going to read. So let's go there.
Pause to read, but it's probably nothing you haven't.
Okay. So Ricky's not going to read it, but if we just kind of skim through, we see here, right?
So here we go.
I think someone starts to say, like, one of my best friends dated him years ago. Stay away. We can confirm, which is kind of sad, right?
Take the rest. Get a little bit more context. Girls who would party with him. I was 17. There were other high schooler guys and girls, all 15 to 17. To look at pictures that they took from this home, and an iPhone geotags the location or tells where a photo was taken. And 2 separate women were able to identify the same house. This is one woman, as you can see, it's on 10th by St. Bonaventure Church, which you can see in the corner there. This is an entirely different victim, St. Bonaventure Church and 10th Street.
Ooh, I realized y'all couldn't hear me. All right, so Ricky's basically saying that there are 6 separate women who came out who said to her, "Look, this is what's happening with him. And we can tell you that we used to go to these parties where there were a bunch of teenagers, and he was obviously of age at that point, and he would take advantage of us. And this is the address." And so these, again, 6 separate women coming out to Ricky, and Ricky's just like, okay, she's gonna do her thing. So she's a journalist, y'all. So she's going to do her thing. She's going to make sure, and she's going to fact check. And she's now showing us this is the address. All right. When we're starting to think about people, and the reason why we're having this conversation is because sociopath is used a lot for him. We start thinking about people who have sociopathic or psychopathic behavior. If you're coming into my office, I'm actually never going to diagnose you with that, because all of those things fall under antisocial personality disorder, which means that you are doing things that might be hazardous to the community, hazardous to yourself, having very little regard for other people. Now, if you guys have never seen this before, it's going to get worse. I don't know if I'm going to play this whole thing. I don't even know if YouTube is going to allow me to do that, but I do want to say that it's very sad to hear. But I also understand that people reform, and I do believe in reformation because I do believe in the body of Jesus Christ. Uh, the logical side of me also says, like, okay, if this person isn't fully reformed and still doing these things, people are in danger. If I take a moment and say on episode, I think it was 11 or 12 on season 8 of Love is Blind, we also see Madison coming back, and they're in the party, and Madison says that he was a whole different person outside of the pods, which then, me knowing this, I'm thinking like, okay, he's turning it on and off. He doesn't, I don't want to say he has different personalities because I don't know him, but if someone were to display the same characteristics that he displays, I would then have to start digging deeper, looking at his childhood, looking at the ways in which he might be showing up, looking if he disassociates a lot, and perhaps even if he takes on different personas, because we do understand that disassociation can happen when people do have antisocial personality disorders.
It's worth mentioning that one of the geotagged photos that I just showed you was timestamped December 12th, 2015, making Alex at the time 20 years old. One of the victims was able to provide a photo from these parties. Everybody's face has been blocked out, obviously, because they are minors, but you can see that there is tons of alcohol. I do have the address of this home, which is publicly listed as one of Alex's previous addresses. I did block out the address, but as you can see, this location is the same.
So y'all see it. It's the same location that you just saw in the video or in the photo of them at a party. Ricky did black out the faces, but again, there are so many receipts and almost proof that at least these individuals were in the same room together, right? We don't know what has happened. Again, that's why we're saying allegations. We don't know what has happened, but these individuals were in the same room together. It is actually very sad too to know that if this does come out to be true, it's hard, right? It's probably hard in the dating world because you never really know someone's past unless they disclose it, or if you start to do some kind of like background verification check. But all of that is really hard. And I know for people who are still in the dating world, this can be very hard to digest, right? Because then you start thinking, right, that fearful part of you might come up and start to think, okay, is this happening to me? And I do want to calm any of those fears that might come up. Or if you are watching this and you're thinking about a friend or a family member who is dating someone and you might think, oh my gosh, they might have a horrible past, I would say take the time out to do what's needed, helping yourself to emotionally regulate, because it bothered me listening to this, and I've been married for almost 10 years now. Well, 10 years, right? So this can be very triggering for someone.
Living room. Previous addresses are public record, so it is public record that this address is listed as a previous address for Alex. Before you say, how do we know that it's the same Alex Brown? The address listed right beneath it is also a previous address of Alex that I have a lease agreement for. Just so we know that we're talking about the same Alex here, and that address does actually link back to the Alex Brown in question, here is a contract for another previous address of Alex. Some of the victims were able to provide multiple pictures from this home and these parties where you can clearly see a lot of alcohol and teenagers. This is just for context, again for context, again for context. Now it is unclear.
It's sad. It really is. Sad and sad. Okay, so let's fast forward just a bit. Okay, because Ricky starts to talk about the ex-girlfriend that, as you saw, was dating on and off, okay?
This ex-girlfriend, and she gave me a little bit more details on their relationship. Now, she did provide photos of the two of them together, which I am not going to show here. She did provide proof that her and Alex were actually in a relationship. And this is what she shared with me. She said that he was obsessed with making her look younger. He asked her to wear her hair a certain way, asked her to get braces, and he requested that she dress younger. She said that one day they were out on a date. She was wearing a dress and wedges, and they saw a young girl. She said, to her knowledge, she looked about 13 to 14 years old, who was wearing skinny jeans, Converse, and a crop top. And he said, you should dress more like that. She also said that when together, he liked watching young porn. Told her that you can just type young after.
All right, so I'm gonna fast forward through this, but Ricky just basically talks about the ex-girlfriend that he did have and almost some sort of preference or fetish or preference for Alex that he likes with young girls, right? So to the point where he's just like, hey, I need you to dress a certain way, or you should dress this certain way because maybe I'm more attracted to that. And again, we're looking at not a teenager at this point, as they're on from 2018 to 2019. So if we're doing the math, 29, right? Alex was 29 last year is when Love is Blind was filmed. He was around 2020. No, 6 years ago. So he was around 25 when he's still saying all these things.
Read some of Alex's essays and just give her feedback.
So now Ricky's basically going to talk about, this is the part that's kind of disturbing. His girlfriend was like a TA. She would help assist. And so Alex was in college and Alex would give her some papers to read. And this is where we start to notice maybe some pervasive things happening. And he even starts to name call her, like, or say like he's worried that she has autism or all these other neurodivergent mental health disorders that have nothing to do with the context of the situation. But I think when you guys listen, you're going to realize that it's his way of deflecting because he probably feels like he shouldn't feel guilty for what he has said.
Back on them, and she said that for his environmental ethics class at Normandale College, he had an essay on utilitarianism and how stealing someone's food and replacing it before they notice is the same as SAing someone in their sleep and them having no idea that they were SA'd. For context, utilitarianism is a theory that states that the best action is one that produces the most good for the most people. So I guess the point of the paper was to take a small example and apply it to an extreme and see if the result still applies when applied to an extreme. Now, while I don't have access to the paper itself, I do have a text thread conversation where she raises her concerns about this paper. Okay, so let's get into these text messages. Before anybody says, how do we know that this is Alex? I asked for the phone number, and this number is publicly linked to the Alex Brown.
All right, so as she's getting into the paper, we're going to just kind of read through some of these things, right? So he starts by saying this, right? Do you want to read my essay I used during sleep argument? Okay, it rhymes with vape. Okay, I might get an F, which tells me that he has some kind of he has the cognitive ability to understand what is probably socially acceptable and not socially acceptable. And as a reminder, y'all, we are thinking about the patterns, and remember, there is no sociopathic diagnosis. It's an antisocial personality disorder diagnosis. If we were to diagnose someone maybe named Balix and not Alex, okay? So she then says, remember, the blue is the girlfriend. Oh my God, let me read it. Also be careful because your teacher might report it. Now, if you giving the guidelines or if you're following along, right, the guidelines of what we're talking about is Alex and his preference for younger people or younger looking people and the allegations that are out against him. Again, Ricky just explains that he's writing this paper on utilitarianism. Why I can't speak, but y'all saw it before. Lord bless my tongue. Okay, where he is trying to argue it's the same thing. Like if somebody doesn't know what's happening, it's not wrong. Basically, what he's trying to say is vaping, but with an R, is not wrong if the person is sleeping and does not know.
Either morally right or wrong, and to analyze it from the lens of a utilitarian. It's just a first draft. She says, very interesting. If utilitarianism benefits everyone, how was the grape beneficial to the girl? He sends a face and says, did you read it? She says, yes, I'm talking about the last sentence in your conclusion. He says, it's irrelevant because there was no effect for the girl. Just like me throwing my trash in the garbage, no effect for everyone else. She goes on to say, sure, but according to your conclusion, it benefits everyone. He goes on to say it doesn't have to benefit everyone. I never said that. She says, got ya. If there is an effect on a person from your action, it should be positive. If there is no effect, then it doesn't matter because it's irrelevant. Again, she's just raising concerns on this paper in general. Taking advantage of someone in that context then has a lot of meaning, and it just leaves me a little confused. He says, do you think it negatively impacted your life? She says, not as much as it could have. I repressed them.
All right. So my thing skipped here, but here they're talking about here.
Taking any implications here, I'm just showing you an alarming conversation that raised some eyebrows in her mind as well. Mixed.
So basically, yeah, Ricky's just saying that Ricky, as am I, are saying that these are conversations, if you're following along, that are painting a picture of Alex, and maybe if someone was named Alex, they would start to be looked at a little funny because they are now treading on very thin water or ice or whatever the saying is. So let's continue.
With all of the other allegations, it definitely is concerning. Got a 79 out of 80 on the paper. In this text thread, the victim confided in him that she had been SA'd at 9 years old. He says, do you think it negatively impacted your life? She says, not as much as it could have. I repressed the memory so much that sometimes I forget it ever happened, actually. It's so disgusting and horrible. He says that guy is crazy to do that shit at a public pool. What a weird thing. Not do it at all in a public pool. The most.
Okay. So again, if we're looking at antisocial personality disorder, and we're thinking about what he just said, if a person, let's not even say Alex, okay? Let's say his name was Tim. Okay, let's say Tim says like, oh, that's so crazy of him to do it at a public pool or doing a public place versus, oh, that's just crazy that he did it at all, would mean that in his head, maybe this is socially acceptable. Maybe it's Tim, this is socially acceptable, right? And if we're thinking about the diagnosis for antisocial personality disorder, one of the criteria that have to be met is conforming to social norms or the failure to conform to social norms with respect to like lawful behaviors. And so is in his head, I'm wondering, in Tim's head, I'm wondering, is assaulting, essaying a person acceptable if it's not in a public place, right? That's something that we would look for in the diagnostic criteria.
Concerning part is he says, were you asking for it? I'm kidding. I'm so sorry. I didn't expect this video to get this long. There is more. Go to part 2. Okay, guys, so here is part 2 of the.
All right, so very inappropriate, okay? And this is why we keep going back to the antisocial personality disorder. For those of y'all who are just now tuning in, we cannot, or I as a clinician would never be able to diagnose a sociopath or a psychopath because they fall under anti-personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder. It's not something that is like, hey, this is what you have. You just fall underneath that category. And then that became a colloquial term like sociopath, psychopath, things of that nature. Okay. Um, in my head, I think this might be a reckless disregard for self or others saying something like that, right? You don't joke about things like that. It's inappropriate.
Allegations that are going around about Alex right now. If you missed part 1, I encourage you to go back and watch it, as we did unpack a lot of things there. We covered the alleged text messages to role play as if they were in middle school. As you can see from the text, he says, pretend we are in middle school and I just got your number from your friend and I have a huge crush on you and we are finally texting. She says, oh my God, okay, cute. And he starts with the role play. Now, she did say that her going along with this is a reflection of her trauma bond to Alex, and she often felt like if she didn't go along with these things that he would get upset with her. She says that she did tell Alex that she cheated on.
Now, for context, this is another person, okay? Actually, I think it's the same person that disclosed being essayed. Basically, Ricky is disclosing that this person, we can call her Tara. Tara says, you know what, I felt like if I didn't go along with these role plays or the things that he was saying, I feel like I would get hurt. It kind of reminds me of someone that also teeters on borderline, I'm sorry, not borderline, narcissistic personality disorder, which again is another one that people throw around, and that's actually a diagnosis for people. So we've come into this culture where we just like to throw sociopath around, psychopath, and I understand it could be in everyday use, but we want to be careful because, as you'll see soon, someone's going to use those words and other personality disorders and neurodivergent disorders that shouldn't be taken lightly.
Him so that he would leave her. She said she does think that she suffered from some form of Stockholm syndrome and had on rose-colored glasses during her relationship with Alex, and she is still processing and working through what went down during her relationship with Alex in therapy. Another
Praying for you, Tara. I am. That's not the girl's name, but we're gonna call her Tara because, yeah.
young woman reached out to me that met Alex on Hinge in 2018. She did provide a snapshot of their initial hearing on Hinge to confirm that she met him. She does tell me that Alex confided in her about something disturbing, something that he described as a mental illness that he cannot control. And now, while there's nothing to show that he confided in her about anything specific, what I do have is a text thread between the two of them where she expresses.
So I want to stop real quick and just talk to y'all really briefly about what it looks like to confide in someone and what it looks like to seek validation from someone. What you guys are going to hear soon is the validation seeking that is coming from Alex. Yes, we can say his name here. Yes, that's coming from Alex. And y'all, I'm so sorry. I can't afford any strikes on YouTube. But it's coming from Alex, and Alex is basically making her feel bad about what he's disclosed, right? You have to be careful with who you entrust information with. And this is for anyone. And you also have to be careful on what you are willing to receive, because you don't know if someone wants to group you into the chaos in which they are going through just to have them feel validated and then make you feel worse, because it puts them in a position of power and it boosts their ego, or it boosts the ill behavior that they've done. So we can go back now.
To him how what he confided in her about was triggering for her. And it was triggering for her because she was SA'd at a young age. And she shares that she's experienced a lot of guilt over the years for not expressing this or telling somebody about what he told her sooner. I am going to share those texts with you now. Trigger warning to anyone who may be sensitive to this information. Again, this phone number has been confirmed and linked to a known phone number of Alex. This is the phone number, and this is the phone number linking it to Alex. So for context, again, Alex confided in her about something disturbing, something that he described as a mental illness. She often was triggered by this because she was SA'd at a young age. She didn't know that what Alex confided in her would be so triggering for her. So she oftentimes hit him up and let him know how it was triggering for her. That is what we're reading here. Okay, so we can see here, you cannot even
All right, so you guys can take a moment to read all of this, but you heard, Ricky's just basically saying that Alex wanted her not to feel triggered, but again, I'm getting that he wanted her to validate what he was feeling, and it's a little baffling to me. Just a bit. Actually, let's go back. I'm gonna like
Conceive of
read a
how,
couple.
why
Right. So so again, this is the girl saying that you cannot even conceive of why what you told me could be triggering is beyond me. And he's like, she's like, it's not BS because it's literally what blank trauma looks like, especially when it's been deeply repressed. I'm sorry, you're right. You couldn't have known. And so what I'm getting from here is this girl, we're gonna call her Bianca. Bianca's just like, she is now, oh my goodness, she is putting all of this back on her, right? She's getting really anxious as sharing this, but I'm proud of her for sharing to say like, hey, look, I'm uncomfortable with what you shared with me because of my own experience, because of my own trauma. It's coming up, it's triggering, and this is what's basically being said here. However, Alex is not having any of that. He's making her feel horrible, as you see here. Let's fast forward a bit. Okay.
he goes on to say, I'm sorry, but I have almost lost all respect for you. In no way did I do anything bad. I have always done things to be helpful and make people happy. She says, I'm not blaming you. I'm sorry. I'm leaving. That's fine. He says, I told you a struggle that I'm dealing with deep down. So he does.
So Alex is basically saying, how dare you feel a way about what I just said? And for some of you guys, this will be a little foggy, right? For some of you, you might feel like, well, if I share something with a person, why would they make it about them? I get it. But we do make it about ourselves if it's something that's traumatic or something triggering us that we have not processed or have not had the proper space to process. And it sounds like Bianca, again, that's not her real name, but Bianca is saying, look, what you shared with me triggered some repressed memories in me, and I don't like it. He then says, I lost all respect for you. How could you even say something like that? He then goes on to, let's see, he calls her and something that's just so disturbing.
He does admit that he told her a struggle that he's dealing with deep down. Again, very vague. She goes on to say, but that was an effing trigger. He says, don't make that about yourself. And she says, and you don't get to determine that. He says, I do not care. That's not the point. She goes on to say, you can't even get the opinion from someone else on who's right here because no one else knows. Why do you think that is? He goes on to say, it absolutely should not be a trigger. If I told you that I graped someone, then maybe it could be a trigger. Or if I graped someone in front of you. I have and never will grape anyone. I told you about an idea that has nothing to do with you. You should be supporting me instead of blaming and shaming me. Shame on you for doing what you are doing. She says, I just got told by another person that it is a trigger. Google it, Alex. Jesus Christ, I'm done. Goodbye. You're right. This isn't worth it. Goodbye, Alex. And then you can see what he says here. Here is another text exchange. I don't know how it fits into the thread, but you can go ahead and read it. Clearly, this woman was very triggered about something that Alex confided in her in, a secret. I described it as something disturbing, something that Alex himself described as a mental illness. She was specific with me about what he confided in her, but I am not going to say it here since there is no proof of it. So I will let you, come to your own conclusions about what he confided in her in about. So that is some more text for context. He also said that Alex confided in her that he believes that he is a sociopath. And again, these women tried their best to provide any receipts and evidence that they had that this man said these things to them. So here's a text.
Y'all heard that though, right? The belief that he's a sociopath.
Thread. If I had done something wrong to you, I would have apologized, as I have no problem apologizing when I am objectively wrong. You want somebody who accepts your strong emotions and who can comfort and accept you regardless, but I am not that person. So it goes on to say, I do not care in the slightest bit if your friends think that I am a sociopath because I understand the underlying fallacies that you have enforced that explain those opinions. My life is lived for the achievement of personal happiness, and so whatever I am, I am. And also, there is nothing inherently wrong with being a sociopath, and it can actually very easily be seen as a major advantage in today's society, as most successful/famous people are sociopaths. Again, these texts are confirmed to be coming from Alex. Phone number, proof.
Okay. We're probably going to end this here. Actually, I think there's one more part. Let's go.
I was not able to obtain any, was not able to find any criminal filings against him. Now, while I wasn't able to find any formal complaints or filings, I do believe that there might be something out there because as you can see here, Alex is talking about just talking to one of the best defense attorneys in Minnesota. And he's seemingly talking about, he said, it could be up to 3 weeks before they charge me and the police could just show up at my door at any minute. So I feel like there's something, there might.
Yeah. Right. So we don't know what it is. No idea. The no idea what he's being charged for. One of the last things I'm going to share here is, if you guys remember, here actually Ricky says it a little bit better, but if you remember him entering the pods, like the whole story he gave about, and I remember seeing it too because I was just like, he did what as a child? He wasn't accepted. Yeah, but listen.
Someone finds something, send it my way. I'm just sharing with you guys what I discovered. Something that's much less important is that Alex did say on Love is Blind that he was wildly unpopular, wore a purple sweater to school every day, was bullied, had an afro. In high school, girls laughed at him. He ate his lunch in the bathroom, and pictures of him circulated from high school, and none of those things appear to be true. He was actually wildly popular. He actually had a music video, which we posted on the Reality Receipts podcast page, where he seems to be very, very popular. I just want to thank all of
Yeah, I don't know. All right, so y'all, let's get into it now, okay? Y'all heard what was said allegedly. You've heard everything about what these women have experienced in the last, wow, like it's now 2025, so within the last 10 years, right? At the time there were some things going on, teenage or underage interactions that probably shouldn't have been going on. But the sole purpose here is we are here to see if maybe someone named Alex or Tim would have been diagnosed with an antisocial personality disorder, given everything we know, given if they lived the life of Alex from Love is Blind and the allegations. Okay. And again, that's all we're going off of. And again, this is for entertainment purpose only, not diagnostic use for your personal time. But I am a clinician, so we're just going to look at what it would look like if someone did have this, maybe someone named Tim or Alex. Okay. So as we see here, we are looking at antisocial personality disorder. Whenever a clinician, and so I don't know if y'all can see this, but this big old book, okay, this is what we use to code and diagnose all clinicians, not just therapy, but any person, like in the medical field as well. We use this diagnostic and statistical manual of mental health disorders to help prescribe medication or to help couple it with a medical diagnosis, okay? And so what you're looking at on screen is a PDF version, like a condensed PDF version of what it might look like, just so y'all can get a look of what it looks like. And I'm glad I was able to get this copy. So if we're thinking about what it takes for a person to be diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder here, right, we have to look at the diagnostic criteria. All right, for this particular one, I think you have to meet three or more. Yep, see, you have to meet three or more of the following, okay? For one, you have to fail to conform. Ooh, child. Lord, touch my tongue. Okay. Failure to conform to social norms with respect to lawful behaviors as indicated by repeatedly performing acts that are grounds for arrest. Okay. If we are thinking back to Tim slash Blalix, who also rhymes with Alex, and their behaviors, did we see any of that? Not on the show. Okay. However, we did allegedly hear that Tim might have been into some of that. Okay. That's one. Okay. Two, deceitfulness as indicated by repeated lying, use of aliases, or conning others of personal profit or pleasure. I can actually probably say yes to this, given the allegations. So that's two. Impulsivity, or not these balloons, child. Impulsivity or failure to plan ahead. That I did not see. Actually, I think he's very tactful. Okay, but I don't know. Four, irritability and aggressiveness as indicated by repetitive physical fights or assaults. Didn't see that. However, I think, and I'm gonna have to rewatch it, so don't quote me, but I think in again the 11th episode when they're all at the reunion, the pod reunion, I think Madison might have alluded to the fact that he did become irritable, but I can't remember if she was talking about him or Mason. at all. So don't quote me, but if that's the case, I would check that box off for him. But because I can't remember, let's not do that. 5 is reckless disregard for safety or self of others. I would say, based on allegations, yes, that's 3. So right then and there, he would have met the diagnostic criteria. But let's keep going. Consistent irresponsibility, as indicated by repeated failure to sustain consistent work, behavior, or honor financial obligations. That I don't think so. Lack of remorse, as indicated by being indifferent to or rationalizing having hurt, mistreated, or stolen from another. Absolutely. Okay. That's 3/4, depending on if we count number 5 as one. So we saw this lack of remorse when the girl's like, hey, look, I'm triggered. You're sharing this. I'm triggered. And he's just like, are you dumb? Oh, I didn't even get to show y'all that, but go watch Ricky's video. I'm gonna tag it. He says like, I believe you have autism, and I think I skipped over it because God, right? He says like, I believe you have autism. I'm just like, whoa, what are we doing here? Why are we name calling or misnaming someone because they do not believe what you believe, right? So he met the criteria for A, okay? And then what has to also be true is the individual is at least 18 years old. Yes, at the time. See, there's evidence of conduct disorder or onset before the age of 15. Not sure, but we're going to look at conduct disorder because I do diagnose at that time for people. And D, the occurrence of antisocial behavior is not exclusively during the course of a schizophrenic or bipolar disorder. So the thing is, when we are diagnosed in the mental health world, we have to be aware of what is happening in that present day, because if someone is having like a manic episode, we are not allowed to diagnose based on that manic episode because we know that person has either could have disassociated or is in a heightened state that will then inflate the responses for some of the questions we might ask to diagnose properly. So if we're going now to conduct disorder, what that is, basically the criteria is as a repetitive, persistent pattern of behavior in which the basic rights of others or major age appropriate societal norms or rules are violated, as manifested by the presence of at least 3 of the following 15 criteria in the past 12 months from any category below, with at least 1 criterion present in the past 6 months. I cannot diagnose this, right? I wouldn't be able to diagnose him with this because I don't have enough information. Typically, right, this is diagnosed. Let's see if they tell you down here. Yeah, right here. See, typically is diagnosed 18 or older, are not met for antisocial personality disorder. Right. So these are the things that we have to cross-reference. You guys can take a screenshot and look because this video is entirely way too long at this point. But my conclusion, if a person named Tim, whose name rhymed with Alex, if his name was Balix, presented with these symptoms, and would I say that he has antisocial personality disorder? Yes, I would, unfortunately. But the person we saw on screen in the first couple of episodes of Love is Blind is not the same person, which then makes me believe, wow, maybe he is deceitful. If it wasn't Alex and it was Tim. Like, okay, y'all following, okay? What do y'all think? I know this was entirely way too long. Again, I'm go support Storytime with Ricky. She has amazing information. She is a journalist at heart because she is a journalist, but she presents information with receipts, and it's so lovely. But I did just want to hop on because you guys did say, hey, you wanted me to talk about it, but I wasn't going to talk about it without having like the clinical facts. Okay, y'all have all of this here. Okay, I can't speak on the conduct disorder. I didn't know Alex at the age of 15, but if he by any chance got into any of these things, bullied people, threatened people, when you're 15, you're in high school, so maybe his friends would know, maybe has been physically cruel to people. Again, all these things, we're looking at aggression from people and animals, but for the age of 15 and below to be able to correctly diagnose for this, then maybe, right? Destruction of property, deceitfulness, theft. These are all the things. But yes, if someone named Tim walked into my office and said, hey, look, this is what it is. These are allegations against me. Yeah, I did all these things when I was younger than 15, stealing cars, hitting animals, being physically cruel to people, stealing old ladies' purposes. I would say, yes, you have antisocial personality disorder, which we call today things like being a sociopath, being a psychopath. This is not to negate the fact that someone can't do that, but on paper, they have an antisocial personality disorder. All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this video. If y'all want me to break things down like this more, let me know. This was actually very long, so y'all can let me know. And if I have enough responses, maybe I will. Let me know who you want me to do next. But yeah, walk good, keep the vibes high. I'll see you in the next video. So click the next video. Bye.